Hi guys, my name is Agnes. I'm with Lucent Education. The three of us partners started the group over 5 years ago now, and we've been helping friends and families for much longer than that. So we knew we had a knack for it. We're a little bit different because we offer our services a la carte, making the process a little bit more affordable to families. And we do also have packages as well. Okay. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about college admissions. There are four major chunks that admissions officers look at, and this is again, a very broad overview, and we'll be looking at details in follow-up presentations. So we'll be going over these four components: academics, extracurricular activities, standardized testing, and applying to college. Okay. So academics. This is by far the most important component of your application. So that means that your transcript is the most important document. It helps admissions officers quickly look at your college potential, your academic performance, and what kinds of grades and the types of courses that you've been taking. So that's the major chunk of what you've been doing in high school, of course. There are three major components when they're looking at your transcript. So that's rigor, performance, and trend. So here's a little bit about those three components of the transcript. So rigor is how you're challenging yourself as compared to what's offered. Performance is how well you did in those classes. And trend is seeing an upward trend. So you could be doing better and better in terms of your grades, or you could be taking harder and harder classes, and ideally you'd be doing both, okay? There are two pieces of advice that I want to emphasize here, and you want to make sure you strategize to be able to take the courses that you want. So there are a lot of AP classes, honors classes, and IB classes that might not be offered every single year at your high school, and you want to make sure that you're able to fit them into your schedule if you really want to take them and take advantage of your academic opportunities. Another piece is both your senior and ninth grade years count. So a lot of people ask me, well, does your ninth grade year count for your grades? Well, yeah, it does. It's part of your GPA. However, you do have time to do a little bit better in those, through trend. So that's one way to kind of do a little bit better and make that transcript look a little bit stronger. And senior year, it still counts. So admissions officers will be taking a look to see whether or not you are maximizing your academic opportunities at your school, okay? Great. Extracurricular activities. So this is typically the most complex for most families to understand. And there are buckets. So the way I'd like to start off the conversation is looking at these different buckets that most admissions officers plug your different activities into. So I'm going to start off at the bottom with what we call our level 4, but it could be bucket D, it can be tier 4, however you want to call it. And our level 4, those are the activities that you're looking at where you walk into a classroom or a group and you show up and you participate. So there's no planning involved. You're there, you're present, and it's something that does make sense to put on your resume still. A level 3 activity would mean low-level leadership. So it might mean that your freshman year or sophomore year, you're going to a group and you really enjoy it. So you decide to run for treasurer of the club or secretary of the club, and you get a little bit more background into what it means to plan activities and to participate on the back end, so working with school administration and whatnot. Your level 2 would be attaining regional success in an activity. So you might end up as a VP or president of a club. You might be participating at the state level in an instrument or an orchestra or a band. You might also be on a varsity sport. There are a lot of activities that kind of meld between levels 1 and level 2. So you might be going to a world-class summer music camp, and that would be hard to discern whether it's a level 1 or a level 2 depending on which camp it is, for example. You might be doing some research. Are you shadowing versus are you starting to produce research that can potentially be published. That's the difference between a level and a level 1 and a level 2 in that case. So those are the 4 main buckets that admissions officers use to chunk up and evaluate activities. Okay. So in your freshman year, you really want to look at exploration and breadth. So this is the year to really explore and consider different formats of activities, community organizations, hobbies, school clubs. If you were in sports before, considering starting new ones or continuing your old ones. Same with musical instruments, dance, the arts. However, the only activities that are considered on the application are those that are actually completed during your high school year. So you may have been playing the piano since you were 5. However, your award from when you were 12 doesn't quite count. So if you played at Carnegie Hall at 13, which is still middle school, let's hope that you also do it again in high school, because it will not count in your application unless you continue to do that activity in high school. Okay. Sophomore year. This is when you trim the fat and deepen your activities and things that you're really excited about. So things to consider are whether or not something's a time sink, and in combination with whether or not you enjoy it. And then if you really enjoy being part of your local Red Cross Club, you might want to deepen your involvement there and consider either taking on an extra project or becoming one of the executive board members. And of course, you want to consider the last piece, which is enjoyment. So do you enjoy your time in this club, and do you see yourself deepening your commitment to this club even further in your junior and senior years? Junior and senior years, this is the time to think about leadership trajectory. There are some obvious ways to show leadership, and that, of course, is becoming president or VP of a club, doing lots of planning and whatnot. However, there are non-traditional leadership options as well. So you could put together a self-started project. We've had students that put together their own apps, blogs, websites that showcase their work. There's also, if you're interested in helping others, but you didn't want to become the president of your local key club, spearheading a fundraiser for a service-oriented club or organization is a great way to show leadership and depth in something that you're passionate about. Okay. Summers. Summers are really important, especially for the junior year. There are a couple of things to consider when you're looking at the summer. So paying for a summer program is not what we recommend, and you can tell that it's worthy of your time if it costs less or if it's free, for example. And another note is to not raise your nose at high school paying jobs. They're worthy pursuits, so don't skip consideration of these, because they show commitment, they show responsibility, and they show maturity in terms of holding a real job. Okay. Great. And I think this is probably on your mind, but a lot of parents and families and students also ask, well, okay, if I want to go to one of the most competitive schools, what level categories, buckets do I need to do in terms of my activities? And what we recommend is 2 to 3 activities within your level 1 to 2 categories. So this might be 3 level 2 activities, and some people attain this by becoming president of 3 different clubs on campus, or 2 different clubs and a varsity sport, or they're an amazing musician and additionally is interested in programming, and they've completed a couple of their own projects that they've showcased on a blog, for example. I think what's most important about activities is that the student genuinely enjoys the activity and can see a possibility of deepening their interests and deepening their commitment to that activity over time. Okay, standardized testing. This is pretty straightforward, so I'm going to fly through this. So you want to start your standardized testing in your sophomore year. And you only really need either the ACT or the SATs. So this is a common question. You need one or the other, and you might start with one and realize that that's not the test for you, and you try the other, and that's okay too. However, if you take the SAT once and you get a 1550, then wonderful, you could be done, depending on the schools that you're looking at. So retakes for standardized testing. So this is one of the questions that we get a lot of, and one of the things that I want to emphasize is you should never take a test more than 3 times total. It just does not look good. So that's the absolute rule of thumb. But you can take it a second or a third time, 3 total. Things to consider is, you've been practicing and you've regularly scored higher. And so you were expecting a higher score and it didn't happen. That would be a reason to retake. Another reason to retake is that something crazy happened. The sun was in your eye the entire time. All your pencils didn't work out. The person next to you, stomach was growling the whole time and it was bothering you. And one of the last reasons that I'd like to list is whether you'll have high quality tutoring. So you may have taken it cold last time or you studied on your own, and this time around you're going to have some really high quality support in which you think that it'll make a difference in your score. So those are the things to consider. Okay, so actually applying to college. So school selections really should start your junior year. You should also get recommendations and complete your school visits. So generally, we recommend between 8 and 15 schools and between 10 and 20 if you're looking at really competitive schools. Why not more? Because you'll have to manage your time and you really want to submit your best possible application. So you don't want to overload it either. So I would actually go on the lower end of the 8 to 20 that we're listing here, okay? The most important piece of understanding your application is developing your narrative. So your narrative could talk about teamwork and collaboration, sports, passion for helping others. You might have a musical narrative like my sister and I had. And you want to consider things that you really want to highlight. So your character traits, your passions and interests, and how you'll bring those things to the college campus. And your narrative is really your personal brand, your pitch. Think of marketing. So what do you want your admissions officer to take away from reading your application? It can't possibly be everything about you. So there's this tendency to want to include everything, but nobody's going to remember everything. And it's better to highlight the most important pieces of your application in order to make the best impression so that the admissions officer takes that story along with them, okay? And we'll talk about the common application. Obviously, there are other types of applications, including the UC applications, the individual school applications like MIT and Georgetown, and other application sources that are similar to Common App. But we'll talk about Common App because the Common App works with the majority of the most popular and the most selective schools. So you can actually start your account August 1st, so I would recommend doing that ASAP. There's always a 650-word essay. Most of the selective schools also have supplemental essays that are individual to that particular school. A couple of tips around that is to definitely recycle the essay. And just because it's shorter doesn't mean you spend less time on them or that they're less difficult to complete. So that's something to keep in mind. The less words you have, the more difficult it is to put together a story or a concise statement of answering that particular question. And of course, they're typically related to the mission and the values. And so you really want to get to know that particular school and why you're applying. As for the common application essay, I would recommend talking more about your narrative. What's the story that you want the admissions officer to take away, but you can't quite convey it in your resume? So I would write the essay with a few key stories, examples from your life, or passions and interests that you want to convey. but doesn't show up elsewhere in your application. And then I would then look at the rest of the essay questions to see which one would fit the best, and then tweak the essay for that. And of course, find a good way to track your deadlines and application documents. So just like your testing, you want to make sure that all of this is tracked. So I, again, suggest a spreadsheet. Okay, that's the end. So if you have any questions for us, this is obviously not a live presentation, but you can always email us at info@lucenteducation.com, or you can message us via our Facebook page. Right, thank you.